portrait mode for Instagram. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the first ever Therapist Thursday. I am so excited to be in conversation with one of my dearest friends, Rebekah. Can you believe that we met? It's going to be 18 years ago this year.
Wow. I really hadn't thought about that. Yeah.
We were both 5. No, but I'm remembering freshly graduating from my master's program at NYU and just being bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, like I'm going to work with teenagers, and then having the realization that I had to work where there was a job, which landed me at Interfaith Medical Center in Bedford-Stuyvesant, Brooklyn. Bed-Stuy, do or die. And that's where we met. And I think about, like, if you hadn't been my coworker and office mate, if I would have gotten through those times, it was really, really hard. So we worked at an inpatient psychiatry unit, a locked facility in a hospital, and it was a wild, wild time. And I learned you were the first expressive arts therapist I ever met. And so I got to see you work. We would occasionally collaborate. And I just think the world of you as a clinician and a human. So I'm so glad to welcome you. And what else do you want the world to know about you and your work?
Oh, well, thank you so much, Megan. It's really sweet to hear you say that and to remember those times when we worked together. I have very fond memories of that time with you. So I am, I am still working at Interfaith all these years later. That's had various forms over the years. And I've moved through different units there and different kinds of people. Shall I just give a little background, or where should I start here?
So, I mean, I think that hopefully we get to learn all about your different modalities, but yeah, whatever background you want to give, go for it.
Okay. All righty. Well, maybe I'll give a little sort of background in how I got into expressive arts therapy, and then later we can talk about what exactly that means, at least in my training and how I approach it. So I have many years working as a dancer and a choreographer, and I guess I'll say just before that, my first bachelor's degree. I guess it's my only bachelor's degree. No, actually, I have 2. See, I'm getting so old.
You just have so many, like, accomplishments and letters after your name, you forget.
Well, it's been a long time since I've talked about this. So my first bachelor's degree is in music therapy, actually. And I went to Ohio University and studied music therapy. I played the flute for many years. And as a child, I always said, I want to help people when I grow up. That was my sort of little mantra. So that's where I took my musical talents into the music therapy. And then in, I don't know, my 4th year of music therapy school, I had to take a required course in dance. And that was just kind of set my whole life in a whole new direction.
Was that the first time you did dance?
Yeah.
Wow.
I was 19 and I took dance, and I first took ballet, and then I took a modern dance class, and the teacher I had was really great, and she had us choreograph a short little piece, and I just loved it. It was so exciting and thrilling to me. So from there, I decided that I wasn't going to pursue music therapy. I finished the degree, but I knew that I wanted to dance. So I auditioned for the dance department. I was accepted, and I went on to dance professionally with other people, but also make my own work for, I don't know, more than 30 years in New York City. And then, of course, as we all know, being artists, I needed to make a living. So I got interested in going back and getting my master's degree. But I knew I didn't want to like just do one modality. By that point in time, I was also writing poetry. I like to, make visual art. And I just felt like, just choosing one modality didn't feel right to me. So I started to explore, and I found a program in expressive arts therapy that was it was in a combination in Albany, New York. It's no longer in existence, but where you could do a sort of like a study part-time with a teacher in New York on weekends. And then in the summer, you go for a long, intensive summer training at a school called the European Graduate School in Switzerland, up in the mountains. And so that was just such a perfect fit for me because they came from more of a European model. By this point, I was really fully an artist. And I had a very strong feeling that it was important to me not to reduce the arts and therapy down to a psychological interpretation and to say, this means that. And if you do that movement, it means that. Or if you make that color, it means that. And, I don't want to sort of paint other fields in a way that, misrepresents them. And I don't mean to do that. But I just had a sense that I really wanted the art in what my training and my work to be in the forefront of the work. So when I discovered the European Graduate School, that was kind of where they came from. Their philosophy was in phenomenology. And so it was really about working with what's happening in the moment, what you see, what you sense, sensory experience. And then through the process of working with that, meaning arises. So it's, sort of coming from, as my teacher at that time said, person specific, moment specific. So that was kind of how I got into expressive arts therapy. And then that, of course, set me off in a whole new direction.
Wow, that's so amazing. When I met you, and I had never heard of expressive arts therapy before, and I had come from drama therapy, and my second internship, I work with kids, and working with kids, there was a lot of fluidity, and it was all about meeting that kid where they were. So, sometimes it was play, sometimes it was making up songs, sometimes it was dance. It really just, for me, was very fluid. So when I met you and I saw that you were kind of involving all kinds of modalities in your work, it felt the most aligned to me of any of the other arts therapists. We were so lucky to be surrounded by, we had like 25 creative arts therapists. So that was, I was still like yearning for that amazing community we had. But that's so cool to just, there's things I didn't know in that story. I don't know if you know this. I think we might have talked about it 100 years ago, but my cousin did the same music therapy undergrad program you did, and he moved to San Francisco to do his internship. And that's when we kind of got to be really close. And I was like, music therapy? If there's music therapy, certainly there's like theater therapy. And that's what led me down the path of learning about drama therapy. Like the internet had just been born, and I was like looking up theater therapy.
Wow.
So I mean, look at like the Ohio State or is it not Ohio State? It's Ohio University.
I went to Ohio University in music therapy. Yeah.
Right. Is it the Ohio University?
Just Ohio University.
Another particular. But look at that. It produced both of us in a way, right?
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah. Awesome. So if you had to sort of describe expressive arts therapy, and maybe, you can be specific about what it means to you, to somebody who never heard of it before, and what might it look like in session?
Okay. Well, I mean, first I'll just say that expressive arts therapy is probably closest to drama therapy because, in my training, and not all expressive arts therapists have the same sort of theoretical framework. It's all related, but there's different approaches. So the approach that I have is out of this European model I mentioned a few moments ago. And like in drama therapy, you're working with voice and language, you're working with the body and movement, you're working with sort of choreography and staging, you're working in film, you're also working with images, moving images. So, and you're working with sound, you know, and music. And I don't know, maybe I've left something out, but so in expressive arts therapy, the idea is that the arts can be fluid with each other, and that we all have the capacity for all of the arts, that it kind of moves away from this idea of specialization, and that, you know, sort of indigenous cultures and ancient people didn't have a word for artist, or, you know, they didn't have like a separate identity. Everybody was part of it all together as a community in creating. And so it kind of goes back to this idea that all humans have the capacity for this. And sort of at the sort of most basic level, the reason why, if that's the right way to put it, the as human beings, what facilitates our capacity is our sensory experience. So we can, if, you know, in movement, if we can move, and we can just learn how to tune in. Like here, I just do it. I'm just doing it. So, you know, what's happening, and you've got this rhythm going, and I'm not trying to make anything. I'm just, you know, moving. And it may look like, oh, well, she can do that because she's a dancer. And of course, I don't mean to diminish my dance background, but it's more a sense of learning how to be sensitive to the moment and to the rhythm, and to, you know, what's happening within yourself at the same time that you're doing, you know, whichever art form you're in. If you're making marks on a page, you know, it's a similar idea. How hard do you want to press? How light do you want to be? How fast do you want to go? What kind of movement feels good? This one or two hands at once, you know? And so, sort of getting beyond this idea that you have to have talent, you have to have skill, and that being an artist is somehow separate from other people.
Oh, oh my God. I was so inspired as you were talking, and I was thinking about like, when did we start putting sort of restrictions on who gets to make art and who gets to, you know, and I think about what I know of early civilization, like people like painting on walls and dancing and just singing as they're doing their work. And there was no sort of, well, I don't know. I wasn't alive back then, believe it or not, but you know, when did we come into this time where we've like made it so that people are anxious about engaging in creative forms, because like that's for those kind of people, and I'm not, you know, no one ever told me that I could create or draw or dance or sing or any of these things. And even further to the extreme, people got early messages that they weren't good enough to engage in those things. And it's like, no, this is actually just a human thing I do. Like, did we get that sort of like teased out of us, or educated out of us, you know?
Absolutely, 100%.
And
Yeah.
in terms of people that you see really benefiting from the use of expressive arts therapy, like what do you see, or and what are some surprises people might not know about who does well in these environments?
Yeah. Well, I guess I don't really think of it like that. Like, you know, there's one group of people who it works better with, or another group that it doesn't, because I feel like expressive arts therapy, it's very flexible to whoever you're working with, and it doesn't look the same with every person, you know. You know, I guess I'll just add to what I was saying before with this what we were talking about you know, how we all have access to these different art modalities. We can also in a session or in any kind of art experience, we can um, one can support the other. So like if I make a dance, then the way my preference, just because of who I am, I like to dance, then I like to take what happened in the dance and the feeling there and put it into visual art. And then out of that, I like to use words to find some sense of integration and write poems. So for that, and that can be a thread of how the arts can sort of move from one into another and deepen an experience. But that doesn't mean that that's how it is in every session. I mean, an expressive arts therapy session could be focused only on one art form. It comes more from the sort of philosophical underpinnings of how one views the work and the experience and the art making. So, it could be more subtle with certain kinds of people. Right now I'm, in addition to my private practice, I'm working in a hospital with um, people who struggle with substance use and complex trauma and um, poverty. I mean, just people who have some of the most entrenched problems and are the most invisible in our culture. And I know that we've been there together. But it's a 28-day rehab, drug and alcohol rehab. So, it's more short-term work. Um, so with them, it's going to look very different than, if you and I were doing a session, but part of it is about this experience of play that I want to encourage. People have, yeah, and I see you nodding, like, I know in drama, you know exactly what I'm talking about. In expressive arts, we talk about the play range. And, one way of understanding a person and where they're at is to be able to notice what their limitations are in their play experience and how to support them to expand that range. And sometimes, I the other day, like, I had a guy who we were doing movement, and this always it never fails to amaze me. He hardly looked like he was participating. The smallest movements, I was asking people to breathe, notice their breath. I know he was breathing, but for me, I take a big breath and it's like, you can hear it, you can see the body. I couldn't really see his breath. And then afterward, I asked, people what their experience was. And he said, I feel so much better. This was really amazing. I'm so much more relaxed. I really stretched my body, he said. I really stretched my body. And I was just humbled again, you know. For me, if I really stretch my body, you're going to notice. So in that sense, it's different for every person. And I try to hold the space to, allow people to be exactly where they're at with it.
That's so beautiful. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And I think about, back to that conversation about permission, like you're a dancer and you are confident in knowing the limits of your body and, having experimented so much with moving your body in space. And when I think about some of the clients that have come through, where you work, or just in general, and who's been given permission to take up space and who's been given permission to be in their body in a pleasant way and in a way that isn't triggering memories of all kinds of stuff. Or and I think about all the people who've had to mask, especially when I think about the folks that we worked with and that you still work with who are living in Bedside, Brooklyn, and surviving, and what that means about what they're allowed to show up and do.
Mm.
And I've been thinking, as you were talking, one thing I love about the creative arts therapies is, often the people that we work with have had experiences in their early lifetimes that they didn't have language for because their brains weren't ready for language yet. And so, sitting and talking about it sometimes is really hard because they're intellectualizing an experience that is very old, that they didn't have the ability to intellectualize in the moment. So to access it through metaphor and through all these other ways gives, we call it aesthetic distance in some types of trauma therapy, of this like sort of space between the truth and processing it through metaphor.
Mhm. Mhm.
Something else you were saying. Oh yeah, I mean, like sometimes I'm working with people virtually, and like all I get to see is as much of you as I see now, and all they get to see is as much of as And so to think about like all the things I can do in drama therapy, are much bigger than this little box. But
Mm. Yeah.
the idea of I might call it a play space, like
Mm.
making offers to bring people into my play space, and what that looks like in just
Mm.
regular conversation is I might add a little playfulness to the way I say something and just see how they respond, and see
Mhm.
where there's rigidity and see where there's the ability to imagine and to sort of
Mhm.
find humor. So that's something that I might do that's not as big as like doing a big full scale drama therapy thing, but even just the way I assess somebody and how they're able to show up in relationship, able to show up in the world,
Mhm.
does have to do with their ability to play. And sometimes you don't even know that's what I'm doing, but it is.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. I really understand exactly what you're talking about. Um, and I guess I can just add in here that, I went on after my expressive arts training, I went on to get a 4-year postgraduate clinical fellowship certification in Gestalt therapy. And then I also studied for a certification in what's called developmental somatic psychotherapy. So, I was thinking about my training in those areas as you were talking too, because that really taught me about awareness and the importance of awareness for the client. And it's also related to expressive arts because that moment to moment awareness of the movement, and just like allowing that process to guide you as opposed to you trying to control it, is so important. But like with the client I was mentioning before, who hardly breathed, hardly moved, but had a very powerful experience, it is like it is indicative of the degree of a way that he had to hold himself in his life due to, I don't know all the details of his history, and I certainly couldn't say that here, but, you know, the trauma, the abuse, I can imagine that for somebody to, it just really gives you, I just want to breathe now as I'm saying this, because when I talk about it, I find myself starting to tighten, and which is another thing that I pay attention to with clients. I pay attention to my body. And if I'm with somebody and I notice that I'm tightening, or sometimes my thing is that I notice when I'm with a client and I'm exaggerating so you can see, but I'm like going like this with my neck, like there's something going on between us. It's not just me doing that. There is something going on that's happening between us that is creating this in me. And that's a really important part about being a therapist, is then to first notice that's what you're doing, sit with it and start to try to listen and understand what might be between the two of us that's creating this experience in me.
Yeah. I was thinking like we were talking before we got on about like translating, and I was thinking about how, in traditional talk therapy, there's a conversation around transference and countertransference.
Yeah.
And so for a therapist, it's like, how is this experience impacting me? How am I feeling about being in this moment? And
Yeah.
for us, we have all these other tools for assessing that. How am I feeling in my body? How am I feeling in my ability to be playful and spontaneous? And all of those things are, and what is that saying about what might be going on for them, and what my presence is bringing up for them, and how it's impacting me? Because ultimately, I've been thinking a lot about this lately and trying to have a conversation about the difference between therapy and coaching. But ultimately, therapy is the container of the relationship, is where the work happens. And
Hmm.
so however my body is experiencing your body in the moment is just another piece of information I have that helps deepen the relationship, helps me understand what you may be doing in relationship with other people in your life, and it's just
Hmm.
more information.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the things I really appreciate about the Gestalt therapy training and about the DSP, developmental somatic psychotherapy training, which is also Gestalt based, um, is this approach that the transference and the countertransference, it can give this idea of you do something and then I do something and I do something and then you do something. And so in Gestalt therapy, the idea is that we're both sort of part of a whole field of experience together, and that just like an infant in its caregiver's arms there is a mutual exchange, that it's not you do this, I do that, you do, it's kind of like it's a dance that happens together all at the same time. And that experience is created together by those two unique people. And so that's kind of how I look at the, the I don't know, the co-created, for lack of a better word, experience when I'm with another person, is we're doing it together. Now, often the client is bringing history that doesn't reflect the moment. So I may be really open and curious, and the client is getting defensive. And I'm saying, do I look? I mean, it sounds like you think I'm not hearing you. No, you're not really listening. Well, what am I doing? That's, to help them see, how am I not listening to you? What am I doing? Am I giving you a certain look, or, and have them slow down and look and see and use their senses. Well, you look like you care. Your voice is soft. And then we can sort of explore that. But anyway, I just wanted to mention, this idea of field theory, that it's this kind of dance that happens together, and we both make it together.
Yeah. Oh my God. I resonate with that really a lot. We have a few minutes together. I would love to ask you, is there something you wish people knew about therapy, or specifically expressive arts or Gestalt therapy? Now's your chance.
Mm-hmm. Gosh. I think in the world of creative arts therapy, I wish that more people were curious to learn about expressive arts therapy. When I work with other creative arts therapists, I always feel included and supported. But people who don't know me from a distance, sometimes I have felt excluded as being very different and perhaps not valid in other people's eyes. But for people who want to participate in it, I wish that more people would know that the arts are so healing, and the arts can be such a beautiful place for self-exploration and growth. And our culture is so oriented toward talking, and people are so scared, to try it. And that it can be very freeing to discover that you can shake your body, and you can jump up and down if you feel like it, and you can scribble on a piece of paper, and like just kind of break through this idea that you have to be something in particular, and that is a way of organizing and understanding your experience. And it's a wonderful way of supporting yourself, and it's also such an amazing way of being with other people.
100%. Yeah. I mean, I think just being able to allow yourself to express yourself in all myriad of ways helps you show up better in all the aspects of your life, right? In relationship, in relationship to yourself too. Well, with the last minute we have, I'd love to hear, how can people work with you and get in touch with you and all of that?
Well, I do have a private practice, and I have a few openings right now. I'm on Psychology Today. We can leave
Yeah,
information.
we'll leave all the, yeah, people can
Yeah,
message us.
my email you can contact me through my email address. I do not have a website, so you could just contact me directly. And I usually, ask to talk on the phone first and get a feel for if we're going to be a good fit together, and learn about what you're interested in, and if you have questions for me, things like that, and explore those things. I'm mostly doing virtual work right now, um, so that is something to consider. And I live in Brooklyn, New York.
So you're,
Sometimes,
you're
yeah,
licensed in New York, which means
yeah.
people who see you have to be residents of New York. Is that right?
That's correct. Those are the rules, unfortunately. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But, I'm totally open to if people are in other states and want to work together for creative support. As you sort of explore your creative life. I think expressive arts is a really great way to get yourself unstuck. And if you feel like you need support with that, to just kind of start to loosen up a bit. I have had other artists take workshops in the past who just really wanted to get out of a rut, and it's been very helpful.
Awesome. I'm actually like making a list of people. I don't know why I didn't think of that before, but well, thank you so much for being here, Rebekah. It's always a pleasure to talk to you, and this I could nerd out about the kind of stuff we talked about all day. So thank you.
Oh, thank you, Megan. It's really great to connect with you. And it's been a wonderful opportunity to be here and get to talk about this work, because I really love it. And I know you do too. So you bring such good energy here.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to end the stream. So goodbye to all 3 million of you who are watching.